Hello. I'm the world's only consulting detective. I'm not going to go into detail about how I do what I do because chances are you wouldn't understand. If you've got a problem you want me to solve, then contact me. Interesting cases only, please. This is what I do. 1. I observe everything. 2. From what I observe, I deduce everything. 3. When I've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how mad it might seem, must be Trekosophy, the Star Trek philosophy podcast.
Well done.
Tonight we have a full crew. Let me introduce our Trekosophers. First, we have a man who has no idea what he's supposed to do and just does what he can do, Chris McGee.
Yeah, that pretty much describes me.
Also, what's he doing with that tribble? It's Brandon Kirby.
That also describes me.
Everything she says is one hell of a quote, Hillary Mekovitz.
I know the only reason you brought me along on this away mission is because I speak Klingon.
My name is Ben McLean, and I may be on the side of the angels, but don't you think for 1 second that I am one of them. And finally, the guy whose job I just stole its checkoff in the red shirt, Bill Allen.
I am very pleased to be here today.
That was pretty good.
Are you looking for nuclear vessels?
Nuclear vessels.
All
I
right.
do not think he speaks English.
And our topic today is nuclear weasels. I mean, Star Trek Into Darkness. By the way, major spoiler alert. Major spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the movie, get the hell out of here now. Thank you.
Yeah, stop playing right now. Go to the theaters. Leave your job. Call in sick. Abandon your wife, your kids, whatever you got to do. Your kid in Little League, he's not going to hit that ball anyway. Go see this movie.
Some people like Star Trek. Other people, they're dedicated, I have to say.
Well, I mean, there were some things with this movie I couldn't stand. I'll tell you that flat out. But it was great. I mean, I laughed, I cried, I fell down, I face palmed. I ran the whole gamut for this one.
I have to agree with you. I think I did the same thing.
So what did everyone like about the movie? I'll start because it won't take me that long. I like the drink that I had while I was watching it. The popcorn was tasty. The floors had that nice sticky floor feeling that you really need in the movie experience. That hit the spot.
Okay.
Actually, I will say it did have all the elements for a good movie. And if I wasn't a Star Trek fan, I probably would have rated it, a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought thematically it was there. There was the irony, there was the twist. You didn't always see everything coming. Some stuff was a bit predictable, but I thought it had all the major ingredients for a great movie.
All right, Bill, what do you like about it?
Well, I like the fact that they managed to work in a few classic references to, Harry Mudd and the Tribbles. The introduction of Carol Marcus as a character to see Carol Marcus's early years. Because we all remember that by the time Star Trek II rolls around, Carol Marcus is the mother of Kirk's kid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where was the Harry Mudd reference? I missed that.
Very tiny reference, actually.
It was a tiny reference. I kind of wanted more of it, but the civilian transport they were using was Harry Mudd's. Sulu got on the speakerphone and said, "Attention, all hands, prep the ship we confiscated during the Mudd incident last month and prepare it for launch."
Yeah, that's about what it was.
Oh, okay.
You had to really be paying attention to catch it.
Yeah.
All right, anything else you want to add, Bill, to what you liked about it?
It was a solid Star Trek movie. Not quite as good as the first one, but things are coming along nicely. The whole Kirk-Spock relationship, it's going to be good. There's not going to be any more personal conflict. Now it's all going to be the people. I think they finally got all the team in place the way they need to be. So I'm looking. It made me look forward to the next movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it was enjoyable for what it was. I mean, yeah, as a hardcore Trekkie, I'd give it a 7, 6.5, 7, 7.5, somewhere in there.
Okay. And Kirby, you said that if you weren't a Trekkie, you'd give it a 9 out of 10. Well, since you are a Trekkie, what do you give it?
Well, I
We'll get to
I'd
the
rather
reasons
movie,
why you don't like it later in a
I
minute.
would rather the movie having not been made rather than made.
Oh my.
So it's something under 5.
No.
Okay. Ben McLean.
I don't have philosophical reasons for liking the movie. So let me just say that. It's not because it aligns to my philosophy in any way.
Oh, we're just here to
But
geek out. We're not here to philosophize
yeah,
tonight.
but I liked the movie for what we knew it was going to be. I mean, I thought it was an improvement on the first reboot film in 2009. I thought it was much better than the 2009 film for the most part. And so it definitely met my expectations. That said, my expectations were not particularly high because I didn't like the 2009 film very much. I really like Benedict Cumberbatch as Khan. He did great. I liked a lot of the classic references, especially the return of Section 31.
Oh yeah, I like that.
That was great.
Yeah.
I hope they have a whole Section 31 thing in the next movie as well, or
Yeah, I
in
thought that
the
was pretty cool too.
TV series or whatever, because Section 31 is awesome, makes for awesome Trek whenever it's mentioned. um, I mean, the way they developed the Kirk-Spock relationship seemed like a repeat of places we've been before. The way they reversed the self-sacrifice scene from Wrath of Khan was weird, but it was okay. I mean, it seemed like a good tribute to that old movie. It was a big improvement over the original movie, particularly since I think that considering you're trying to recover from that horrible first film, they did great. When they had Leonard Nimoy on for like 30 seconds, that seemed like a good way to use what happened in the first movie. I mean, they used him pretty well, where in the first movie they didn't use him very well at all, but in this movie he's there, but he's there for a cameo, and that was fine. And let me see. A lot of the astronaut stuff was, I mean, the action was a lot of fun. Scotty got to play a big role, and that was great. So overall, I thought it was pretty good. There were areas that it could have improved on, but it's a J.J. Abrams film, and we kind of know what kind of movies he's making, so I don't think we had much grounds to really complain too badly.
Okay.
Unless we're going to condemn the film series as a whole, which we could easily do.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, I mean, this is everyone's opinion here. We're not, going to try and sway anyone's opinion of the film. We're just trying to relay our experiences watching it. Hillary, how about you?
All right. Well, I thought it was a good popcorn flick. I liked the first movie. I didn't think this one was as strong. I don't think either one had an incredible amount of depth. I enjoyed the casting. Thought that Zachary Quinto continues to do the home planet proud. And yeah, I just enjoyed seeing those characters again. And I thought the acting was fine. It's the writing where I had more issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as what I liked about the movie, well, I kind of agree with that. It's a great self-contained little popcorn flick. I did enjoy the little references that Bill pointed out to Mud and the tribbles and everything else that all the Trekkies would pick up on. Good action, nice storyline. I enjoyed the fact that, while they were trying to rehash an old storyline, they at least attacked it from a different direction instead of just being, he's out for revenge. It's now a lot more complicated. Well, maybe a little more complicated than that. That way, people who have never seen the original movies can like it, and people who have seen the original movies can still like it because it's not the same story exactly. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the movie just fine. Maybe that makes me less of a Trekkie, I don't know, but I enjoyed it very well. Okay, let's go to the dislike. We'll leave Kirby for last since he's got the most to say. In fact, let's go in reverse order. How about that?
Yeah.
What didn't you like?
What I didn't like about it. Well, I didn't like the fact that they felt like they had to do so many references to the original film, Wrath of Khan, with the almost mirrored scene with Kirk's death, the almost forced way that Spock yelled out Khan's name. And I know you said you liked it. I think Ben said he liked it, but I didn't particularly like the way they brought in Spock Prime in this film. Yeah, I like the idea that he's going to do a cameo, but it almost seemed kind of
Gratuitous.
crowbarred in a little bit. And I can't imagine the new Spock doing something like that. Well, maybe he would. I don't know. But it almost seemed a little gratuitous. Speaking of gratuitous, of course, the shot of Carol Marcus in her underwear. But hey, it's Star Trek. You gotta have a sexy woman in it somewhere, barely clothed, right?
It's weird. That seemed to mirror what happened in that first episode of Enterprise, or was it the first one? That early episode of Enterprise,
one, Broken Bow or Bow, whichever.
Yeah.
And lens flares.
Oh God, yeah.
J.J. Abrams, please dial it down a little. Holy cow. When Carol Marcus was making her impassioned plea to her father not to destroy the Enterprise, the only thing I could think of was, holy cow, look at the gigantic lens flare. Right in the middle of her face, practically. I mean, really.
Well, when you're constantly noticing the lens flares,
Yes.
the purpose.
I mean, I understand it's a film style, throw them in once in a while, but not every damn scene. Holy cow.
What's a lens flare?
You watch the movie and you don't know what a lens flare is.
I have to confess that I
Google
didn't
it.
really notice those until you mentioned it. But then again, I was watching it with those stupid 3D glasses.
Oh yeah, so you had
I
them coming
watched
right
it.
at you.
Oh, because, hey, it's in the theater, I might as well watch it in a manner that I can't get at home. All right.
Yeah, well, I guess I might have figured that was a product of the 3D glassery.
No. That's
Lens
J.J.
flares
Abrams.
are
That's a
straight out of
product of
70s.
J.J. Abrams right there.
Cool guys don't look at explosions.
Right, that too. Now, anything else that I didn't like about the movie? That's probably my biggest gripe. I can't believe I forgot about that till now. That might be it for me. I may think of more stuff as we go along. May even have so much to say about this movie, we may split this episode into 2 parts or more. All right, Hillary.
Okay. Well, I forgot one silly little thing that I did enjoy that really is nothing
go
to do
ahead.
with the movie directly, but I got a kick out of how in all the reviews of the movie with the pseudonym for Khan, they kept calling him George Harrison by mistake. I noticed in more than one review they referred to how his character was supposed to be John Harrison, the pseudonym for Khan.
Oh, the reviews for the movie?
More than one reviewer called him George Harrison.
Wow.
Yeah, so you picture this evil beetle going after Captain Kirk.
Well, he's British, and
He's British and he's sullen. It works,
yeah.
Oh.
But as for what I didn't like, I thought it was overkill with all the Wrath of Khan references, and for me, nothing tops Wrath of Khan for Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
And I thought, you're just turning into a Wrath of Khan ripoff, and I was getting rather irritated with that after a while. And with the first movie, I was carried along pretty much by my surprise that I could enjoy anybody else playing those iconic characters. The second movie, it's like, okay, but what are you going to do with them? There was just no depth. So that was really my main irritation was, all right, it's a fun jaunt, but Star Trek is usually about saying something about society around you, and there's a bit of a 9/11 reference, but for the most part, I felt like it just wasn't. There wasn't much depth there. Just hey, I've seen Wrath of Khan a few times. Pretty much my take on it.
Okay, Ben, what did you not like?
Okay, well, I wasn't expecting Citizen Kane here. I mean, this was not going to
Any
be.
of us were.
This was
Citizen
not.
Khan.
Yeah, this was not going to be Citizen Khan or Star Trek: The Motion Picture, artsy,
Thankfully, it
political
wasn't Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Trekosophy fest. This was going to be. I'm gearing up to make the next Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Check it out. That's what this was going to be. So I knew that coming in, and so I tried to ditch all assumptions that this had anything to do with what we call Star Trek here. And because of that, I enjoyed it a lot more. I think that there are a few obvious things that were kind of a problem for this movie. One is, I guess, I don't know, it doesn't seem to sit still long enough. You know?
Yeah.
It seems like Star Trek with ADD. Because
yeah.
it
Well, the
just
first one was like that too.
yeah, it's like half a second. I mean, Star Trek a lot of times has relied on a lot of these deep conversations, and those didn't really happen. I mean, there was a brief one with Kirk and Pike that was pretty good, I thought, but it was what, 2 minutes? And then it was back into this nonstop action, And action is good. I like action, but you need a balance, and this was kind of unbalanced in that department. And in that sense, it wasn't very deep. It was a lot more like the next Star Wars movie is probably going to be. But another thing that I thought was a problem with this movie, like I said, I enjoyed it, but it has its drawbacks. Another thing I thought was a problem with this movie was how they generally used Dr. McCoy as a comic relief character for most of the film. They made fun of how he talks, which is okay, except if you're going to make fun of how somebody talks, you obviously need to have this Kirk guy making fun of how Shatner talks. That would have been a lot funnier. But they didn't do that. They made fun of how the Doctor talks, and that was fun and all, but they didn't have enough times where the Doctor was being the sort of counselor to Captain Kirk that we all remember him being, who is trying to balance out what Spock is saying. He didn't really do all that much of that. He became this sort of irrelevant nuisance whenever he said anything. And that, I think, wasn't... In the first movie... See, this is an advantage the first movie has over the second movie, because in the first movie, they really nailed Dr. McCoy. Dr. McCoy in the first movie was true to character.
But it was true to everything that's been said about the character, even stuff that wasn't canon, but we all know about, like the divorce and all that.
Yeah, the Shadows on the Sun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely there in the first movie. And this movie, McCoy is turned a little bit campy. And that, I didn't... It was funny, but it was cheap funny instead of being, like, deep funny, And I would have preferred something that was a little more deep funny. And that's about it. I hope they return McCoy to being a little bit more useful as an idea guy rather than just as a scalpel monkey in the next film. And I am looking forward to the next film or television series or whatever it is they're doing.
I'm sure we all are.
I think they're going to get. I think they got better, and I think they're going to keep getting better.
Plus, I figured it was the whole Trek rule of every other movie. So I'm like, I like the first one. I'll probably like the third one.
All right. Well, before we get to Bill, let me address a couple of things here, Ben, real quickly. You mentioned how, you didn't like McCoy being used as comic relief instead of what he was in the series, the original series and the original movies, where he was more of a confidant, more of a mentor in a way, sort of, or at least a sounding board for Kirk. I think most of that is the writing, poor writing. They just wanted Kirk to do everything himself and be right all the time, or had to have him constantly on the move. Not even.
Oh, sure. I
Instead
mean,
of stopping long enough to have McCoy say anything to him.
it's not. Yeah, it's not the actor's fault. That much is
I know.
obvious.
Yeah,
We
okay.
saw that actor really do
Yeah,
McCoy
he is a
really
great
well in
actor.
2009. So it's the writing for sure.
And along those same lines, about the ADD part of it, I hate to say it, but that's kind of the way a lot of movies are going these days, especially J.J. Abrams films. He's trying to cater to a younger crowd, the crowd that has ADD already, and he doesn't want, and also the original series and even the subsequent television series didn't have the budget to do special effects, so they turned towards dialogue to fill a lot of time. They turn towards character development to fill that time, which is what I prefer.
Yeah. Well, hold on. I mean, we saw in the later television series, is DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, that you could have halfway decent for the time special effects on television.
But they still don't have the budgets that major feature films do.
Well, I mean, the later Star Trek movies were major feature films, but they had great scenes in them.
You're talking about
Well, in the original Wrath of
Insurrection,
Khan, there was some depth to it.
Nemesis. What do you mean?
Yeah, Insurrection and Nemesis and stuff. They had at least some halfway decent dialogue scenes in them.
And they usually also are lambasted by Trekkies.
Well, I mean, the one,
But,
that last one where Data died was really sad, and it had a lot of talking in it that was, at least intelligible.
Well, anyway, we're here to discuss that movie. I just wanted to point that out that in general, I'm not saying all the time, Ben, but in general, television shows have the writers want to spend more time on dialogue. And
yeah, well, I'm really comparing it to the movies.
Because I mean, television shows we're talking about hundreds of hours, dozens of hours, maybe hundreds of hours, depending on.
Well, I'm comparing it to the movies and to the big 2-hour specials they did, for season finales or season openings that they did on some of the shows.
But we're also talking about J.J. Abrams too, who likes to cater to the ADD crowd.
Yeah, and I think it's a criticism more of J.J. Abrams than of anything else.
Okay, Bill, your dissenting view of the movie?
Well, I gotta say, my list is probably going to be about as long as Kirby's. There were some things about this movie that irked the bejeebus out of me. For starters, I did not like the action sequences. They were disappointing letdowns, except for the Klingon fight scene and Kirk just standing there beating the hell out of Harrison, which bugged me for a different reason, but that was a great shot. I mean, it was a great scene, but it just, plot-wise, it bugged me, and I'll get into that. But no, the fight scenes where Enterprise shows up, Enterprise gets blown up, something happens so the other guy stops shooting, Enterprise runs away. Enterprise shows up somewhere else, gets blown up some more, runs away. I mean, Star Trek II, you had this epic ship duel where these two wounded ships are, playing a little submarine silent running type action going on. The ground combat scenes were a little bit better, but it just, I missed that epic ship combat. And that was one of the key things that made Star Trek II such a good movie, aside from Ricardo Montalban. But I mean, the epic ship battle just wasn't there. It was you have Scotty pulling a Star Trek 3, so we're all good. So that really bugged me. Lens flares didn't bother me too much because it's the style now. You get used to it. Shaky cam, lens flares, it comes with the territory. I sort of enjoyed lampshading the red shirt thing. They go on an away mission. And it's like, guys, take off those red shirts. I was disappointed there was no epic red shirt death, but he at least referenced it. And then he tells Chekhov to put on a red shirt. And in the first movie, I was like, Chekhov kind of sucks. I wasn't a fan of Chekhov in the first movie. The actor did a great job. It was just,
Yeah, he wasn't written well.
No, and the second movie is like, and my wife gives me a look at that point, and I'm like, they won't. And she says, J.J. Abrams might. And I'm like, he's not Joss Whedon.
Or
But
Stephen Moffat.
yeah, I was disappointed there was not some kind of epic death of the guy in the red shirt. But at the same time, the way they did it, guys, take off those red shirts. We're supposed to be in civvies. I enjoyed that part of it. My biggest beef is the fact that the main villain was Khan, and we'll probably get into that a little bit later. The other thing that did disappoint me, and it's something that just stuck with me and it didn't sit right. First movie, Chekhov's like, I can do this, I can do this. And he beams out two guys who are falling into a black hole. Zip, 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 zip. I got them. I'm that good. Second movie, no, I can't lock on. You're moving too fast.
I noticed that as well.
And I'm like, really? I mean, Russian whiz kid ain't such a whiz kid anymore. I was also disappointed they killed Captain Pike. When that fight scene broke out, I really thought what would happen was Pike would be critically injured, and the movie would end with him in that chair with the naked face.
The blinky chair.
Yes!
I figured he was going to stay in the chair in the first
That's a good
movie.
point. They should have done that.
I mean,
I'm going to make a prediction. I think Pike is going to be back in the next movie or in a future movie.
he's dead. He's dead. I mean, I can't see them finding a way to bring him back. But I mean, I didn't necessarily want the same Blinky chair, but I mean, they did a reimagined Enterprise. Do a reimagined Blinky chair. The one other thing that bugged me, and I don't know why it bugged me, but it just did not sit right with me. The extra vents on the nacelles and the little blue streamers that they leave behind every time they go to warp.
Now, this is how you know that we're real trekkers here.
I mean,
complain about the design of the ship.
Well, I mean, the first movie, there were only a few scenes of them actually going to warp or out of warp, but they didn't leave them little smoky blue streaks.
It left behind bubbles.
Yeah, now it's like, come on, really? Space bubbles? Little blue rainbow My Little Ponies space bubbles? And it's...
Yeah.
I mean, there are other little bits and pieces here and there that I liked. That scene where the Enterprise is firing 40 thrusters and it's still dropping like a brick. That kind of made me like chuckle inwardly a little bit.
Thrusters are just maneuvering thrusters. They're not meant to stop something from falling at whatever,
right, but I mean, full
gigantic speed that it was dropping at.
I know. I mean, I'm not saying
okay. You just
like that scene. It was just that full burn kind of thing. Just kind of.
We're here to nitpick, so it's fine.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, there are a lot more little things I like that I'll probably mention at some point, but those are the big things I don't like, except for the fact that it was Khan, and I've got a nice long rant about that.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to that very soon.
Yeah.
All right then, Kirby, time to wake up. And I'm sorry you can't talk about paint drying. We're going to have to talk about this movie.
No paint drying? Okay, fair enough. Well, what I didn't like about the movie, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know what a lens flare is, but I'm sure it ticks me off. I didn't like, I didn't like emo Spock. I mean, for goodness sake, just give him a Justin Bieber haircut and get it over with. I thought he was definitely overly emotional. And when he was stoic, the old Spock that we know and love, it was more for comic relief. The fact that he wasn't apologetic or thankful to Kirk, that sort of thing. There's good and bad. I kind of thought it was funny when he was talking with Pike and he cut him to pieces over, what sort of an attitude he was giving him. I thought it was funny and used Bill's word apropos. So I still think that the overly emotional Spock really robs the character of what made us all fall in love with him. The movie was highly derivative, I thought. I was watching it with Rachel, my wife, and she said, look at all these previews. They're all movies that have been done before. Superman, The Lone Ranger, and it just went on and on and on about they stole ideas from people, and they're trying to remake them. Well, Enterprise, for example, the shows I really didn't like on Enterprise were the ones where they just took ideas from earlier Star Treks. They did an episode where T'Pol and Phlox were the only two that could stay awake while the rest of the crew had to be sedated. Well, it was taken directly from a Voyager plot, or Trip and that alien having to learn each other's language while stranded on the planet, taken from a TNG plot. In the movie, I thought it was too derivative of Star Trek 2 to make me gravitate towards it. I don't think it added anything to the Star Trek universe, except for maybe some fancy effects that they didn't have back in the 80s. And then the obvious one that maybe we don't even need to say, but it's the timeline. And that's, maybe it's just a thing that makes me about a human being, but I don't like how they, you get some smart ass who comes along and says, oh, well, everything that you fell in love with, it didn't really happen. For some reason, that doesn't sit well with me. Those are my major ones.
Well, I have
and
something
Khan
I
was
can
white.
say about that.
What happened to that? Khan was a white guy. I know we're not bringing up race, but I'm bringing up race. He wore a turban in the original series.
Well, see, if they made him the same race as Montalban, then during the trailers, everyone would know the big spoiler.
Yeah. I'll get into that.
Hey,
That's true.
Well, hang on. So, all right, anything else that... I mean, I know you got a gigantic laundry list, and I'm sure we'll hit every one of those points.
Hey, just a quick question. I'm kind of colorblind. What would you say was the race of the original guy who was playing Khan in Wrath of Khan? He seemed kind of vaguely weird, but I didn't really...
Do you mean Khan or
Ricardo Montalban?
Yeah. I don't even know what race the guy is.
Well,
I'm that colorblind, honestly.
Ricardo Montalban was
Singh?
What, Mediterranean or something? No.
he's Latino, or he's that dark Spanish.
Ricardo Montalban's Spanish, but
Spanish, okay.
Latino, not Spanish, but Latino. But Singh, Khan Singh was supposed to be an Indian.
Yeah, I mean, his full name, if I remember right, was Khan Mohammed Singh.
You
Khan
remember
Noonien
wrong.
Singh.
There you go.
Okay.
Well,
I seem to remember Khan Mohammed Singh from somewhere. Oh well. That's from the Sign of 4. My bad.
I don't want to get political about affirmative action, but I don't think a white guy was right for the part.
Yeah, but
Oh, come on. It's, what's his face? Benedict Cumberbatch, or however you say that.
Every time I see his name, I want to pronounce it Cumberbund.
Yeah, well, it's the Sherlock Holmes guy. How can you not like the Sherlock Holmes guy? Come on.
Probably because I've never seen the show. I will
Oh
eventually.
my gosh,
Don't start. I will watch it, just not yet. I got other shows to get through first. Okay.
You better be glad I didn't pull the whole "don't speak, it lowers the IQ of the whole street" line, which was just one of the funniest lines in there.
Okay. Well, so I guess we can go a little more freeform now. What was the last thing you brought up, Kirby, besides Khan's race?
Spock being stoic or lack of stoicism?
timeline.
The timeline.
Yes, I did want to bring up one little thing there. I agree with you. People that say, oh, it's a new timeline, you should forget about the old timeline, it's no longer exists. That's 100% bullshit. I say that both can exist in parallel universes just fine. Even on Memory Alpha, they consider the world that we know and love of Star Trek as the Prime universe. I don't know the name for J.J. Abrams' tangential universe there, but
The Abramverse.
Abramverse, yeah, could be. We'll call it that for now, anyway. I think both can exist just fine. When they refer to Spock on Memory Alpha, they call him Spock Prime when talking about him in the new timeline. I think both can work just fine. I mean, it's not like your DVDs and Blu-rays of the old shows are no longer watchable. I mean, you can still watch them. Did they just stop working all of a sudden? Are they blank now? No. So, the people that say, "Oh, forget about the old timeline." First of all, I haven't even heard of those people. I haven't run into them, so I don't know who you've been talking to, Kirby. But if I ever do, I'll just punch them straight in the face and say, "Bullshit." Both timelines can live simultaneously. I'm okay with that.
There's something of suspension of belief where you like things to be internally consistent. When you sit down and you read a fantasy book, you really like to think of yourself as one of the hobbits there, taking a ring.
Mm-hmm.
You like to get lost in it. And if I were to go back in time and shoot Hitler and all of a sudden World War II didn't happen, well, you can't really enjoy a World War II book because it didn't really happen.
I'm gonna go middle of the road on this one a little bit.
You're gonna try to please everybody.
No, I see what Kirby's saying. I mean, and that's part of what bothers me about Khan, which I'll get into on my nice long rant. But at the same time, Spock, old Spock in the frozen cave, Spock
Prime.
Spock Prime says, you need to be captain of the Enterprise. We got to put things right. We got to get history back on track. So an element that could be a part of these future movies is making things line up the way they should. I mean, I would have loved for that 10-minute opening teaser to be the last 10 minutes of a classic episode just kind of redone, amped up, and be like, oh, yeah, this is them visiting such and such planet. But since they hadn't started their 5-year mission yet, they couldn't do that. Next time, I'm sure they will, since they're on the 5-year mission. And we'll see original series episode. We'll see the last 5 minutes of an original series episode as the intro to the next Star Trek movie. Because they have an opportunity here to go and do what they've already done and get history back on track, except for a few changes here and there. I mean, the big reason plot-wise they did that whole change history is so you're going to worry, oh, God, they could really kill off somebody on the crew. Anybody could die. And no, they really can't. They're not going to, but they want you to worry about these characters.
Oh, sorry.
They have an opportunity here. There are some things in history that should be changed. I mean, even the most diehard lover of the original series could probably say there are 1 or 2 episodes that were just horribly done, really stupid. What was the worst episode of the original series, Kirby?
Well, everyone says Spock's brain. In my opinion, it was the greatest episode of Star Trek ever in all the 5 series.
But what's the worst? What's the one that you just look at and say that's stupid, they shouldn't have done it, or they should have done it differently?
City on the Edge of Forever.
There you go.
Wow.
That surprises me, and I think he's just trying to be a trendy.
I'll just you guys.
Trying to that's what he's doing.
Okay.
I'm trying to rattle the cage. Trying to.
Good job.
But I'm sure there is an episode that you cringe at when you think about for the original series.
Maybe.
I don't have to put you on the spot, but I mean, yeah, maybe. There's probably something. There are episodes in the original series that you think could have been done better or should have been done better. Maybe.
Oh, sure, yeah.
This is what these movies give us an opportunity to do. It's not remaking history to do all new stuff. Nothing wrong with new stuff. But
it's like
pick a story that didn't work and fix that one.
Well, plus the other opportunity is there was only 3 seasons of Star Trek. So there was all those aspects of the 5-year mission that were missed out on. And so every movie, they had to get the guys out of retirement, come up with an excuse to get them back together. And I saw the reboot as just a wonderful way to get those characters back in their prime again and be able to tell the stories that they didn't get the chance to get before because NBC gave them the axe.
Absolutely. That's the great part of it. The other 2 years of a 5-year mission. I don't know if anybody other than me read the Star Trek Lost Years series.
Nope, just you.
I
did watch the animated series, though, which kind of
I think I did read part of that.
I barely know how to read, but I think that that'd be great if they did something like that. My concern is it's like when you watch an episode of Doctor Who. Did I derail the conversation? You guys wanted to talk about those books? It just hit me.
No. You're not derailing. Go on.
We want to stay.
Okay. Well, please stop me if I did. I certainly.
Well, I
didn't mean
wanted to bring
Don't worry,
up
I
one
will.
thing from
Oh,
earlier.
go ahead, Ben. Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
And this is just a crazy thing, which we might just throw in before, and then Brandon can go, okay? But it's, one thing they'd never do, but I would love to see, would be if they'd ever go back to the gangster planet from Piece of the Action, and it's
Yes.
it's a
Yeah,
modern
that's
gangsta
great.
planet with rap music and
Oh
stuff.
God.
Well, in the old series, it's a clone of the Federation now, right?
Yeah, because the
Left his
The
communicator
McCoy left his
behind.
communicator. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. So I thought they probably should have done that in one of the later Star Treks.
That's one of those things that's always driven me crazy sometimes. All the dangling plot threads that they never got around to that they should have.
Like when Chekhov in Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, he tossed his communicator or something, I think it was communicator, over to one of the naval officers as he was leaving.
Yeah. He throws it at him to try to do that. I'm going to throw this as a weapon since my weapon don't shoot. And
then he took off running. Yeah.
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 Whatever happened to that communicator?
Wow, you guys are nerds.
Well, now we've got a third timeline.
All right, go ahead, Kirby. You were going to say something?
It was about Doctor Who. And
Do
now I
it.
remember what it was. It was. I like the show, but when they start, if he does, if he does something where he goes back in time, that makes sense to me, and I have fun with the show. But if he does something that violates the law of causality, like event A causes event B, causes event C, causes event A, all of a sudden I can't enjoy the show because I can't bring myself to suspend that disbelief.
You don't like the wibbly wobbly timey wimey.
Well, I didn't like the wibbly wobbly timey wimey, and all of a sudden, if I can no longer suspend that and I can't get into the fantasy world and actually sit down, well, then all is in ruins for me. And now with Star Trek, all of a sudden, I'm sitting down, I'm trying to watch the show, and I start to think to myself, well, none of this really happened. And I'm just like in one of those Doctor Who episodes where there's something that doesn't make sense logically, and I said, well, that can't happen, forget it. And I'm ruined.
I wonder
Well,
if that's what my mother goes through, because I put her through Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, and yes, she's 74 years old. And anytime whenever we watch a time travel episode, she always turns to me and says, I just don't get it. I just don't understand. And I think, just take it on face value. Just enjoy it for what it is. Don't try to make sense out of it.
Kirby, remember that according to Captain Archer, by the 31st century, there's a whole Federation temporal Cold War agency that goes around fixing the timeline. So in between the messed up events of these movies and the Next Generation, the agents in the temporal Cold War get things back on track, so it still happens.
Bill, I think you just broke Kirby this time.
I saved Kirby, because now he can still enjoy everything that's already been here and not worry about what the movies do.
We should make a Christmas episode, The Time Bill Saved Christmas for Kirby.
But out of curiosity, I know this is way off topic, and we might have to do a podcast on this at some point. 20, 30 years from now, when these new movies and the reboot franchise gets to the Next Generation, who would you recast for the various characters? No, don't. That's just my thought of the day to mess with your head later on down the road.
My explanation and the way I enjoy Doctor Who is I just keep in mind that a wizard did it.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening to another episode of Trekosophy. You can find us at our website on trekosophy.com. We have a Facebook page, a Twitter account, Trekosophy, our email, trekosophy@gmail.com, and please leave us a review on iTunes. We are also always open for listener questions. That's how they got me on the show in the first place. We also have a PayPal account. Because Trekosophy is run by the Carnegie Corporation of New York, viewers like you and PayPal. Please join us next week, and I'd like to thank Chris McGee, Bill Allen, Ben McLean, Brandon Kirby, and I'm Hillary Muckovitz, and thank you for joining us in another episode of Trekosophy. See you next week.
And whatever you do, don't fire Scotty. If he's away from the ship for one bloody day, the thing blows up.
What are we talking about tonight? The movie?
Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about paint drying? That's much more interesting.
I don't always drink, but when I do, I'm usually on Trekosophy.
Falls through my mind like a sieve thing that makes water go through.
Or do you want to do it the other way around? Since we got to be pro-Trek, we should end on a high note? I don't know.
Oh, we're not going to end on a high note.
Well, you might not end on a high note. I got some booze.
Ugh, my mind's gone blank. How does Bill do this?
Do you know who